Welcome back to the show, guys. All right, today we got a special guest. I say that a lot, but we really do. We have Brett with Distillery 64, and we are going to go over some samples. He was gracious enough to sit over, and we're just going to talk about everything Distillery 64 and just kind of see what makes them tick. And I heard from a good source that these guys are doing some really cool stuff, and I hope it plays up. So without further ado, here's Brett. How's it going, brother?
Going good, going good. How about yourself?
It's been one of those days. Um, I'm a plumber by trade, so it's been a very hectic day. And so being able to come in here into I call this place the shed, aka the recording studio, and sharing a drink with somebody is going to make this day a little bit easier for me. So I appreciate you coming on here. So before we get started, I wanted to get something into the glass because I do have an empty Glencairn here, and I would like to get it filled with something. And you were gracious enough to send over a lot of samples. So, where did you kind of want to start with this? Obviously, I like weird, cool stuff. So, however you want to do that, you have everything from vodka to rye whiskey. So,
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So probably one of our flagship things I'd like to start you off with is our oaked rum.
okay,
So we take our silver rum and then we just age it on lightly toasted oak chips to give
okay,
that kind of barrel essence to it. It gives the color, it gives the flavor, and it drinks like a whiskey, probably closer to like a Canadian whiskey, like maybe a
okay,
brown. Um,
okay,
we in our tasting room's like a little speakeasy, true speakeasy fashion. We're kind of hard to find, uh, but for those who do find us, they like this oak rum in like a traditional old fashioned in place of bourbon.
oh wow, okay, okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so now that I got something, we're gonna sip on this for a second. Where did the name Distillery 64 come from?
So good question. So artisan distilleries are still fairly new to Indiana, and when Distillery 64 came about, full disclosure, I'm not the original owner of Distillery 64. The previous owner, his name was Terry Spine, great gentleman, very generous with his time and knowledge. He was interested in starting like a small agricultural distillery. So he had a little
Okay.
bit of land, and at that time, Indiana was considering artisan agricultural distilleries. So he just had to basically kind of divide up his property, zone it properly, and then he could allow the public to come try the things that he was making. Um, Long story short, they changed their mind on those laws and didn't want to do that anymore. So he had to move his location. But the original location was on State Road 64 in Georgetown, Indiana.
Got it.
So that's where the 64 came from.
Got it. Got
And
it.
with all
Okay.
the paperwork and stuff that's involved, we're just like, well, just keep the name.
And it is a cool name because it gives you have that to fall back on. You have a cool entry story to get people in the door. So that's always cool to
Yeah,
have.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so what made you want to kind of take over the reins? Have you been in distilling? Your whole life? Were you an IT guy? Were you a trucker? I get them all. Believe me, I get them all.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So, I mean, like day job wise, I'm an instructional designer, so I make all that boring training that you have
Hmm.
to take before you start a job.
Yeah.
Don't touch the no-no zone, that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's the stuff that I make for corporate
Great.
companies. So very much kind of techie. But since I was 17, I got into brewing beer at
Hmm.
about 17 or so. Had a gentleman show me how to do it. I wasn't old enough to go buy the stuff myself, but they still allowed you to buy all the ingredients to make it. I thought it
Right.
was a great way to party. Turns out
Mm.
there's a lot of planning involved in trying to set those parties up and make sure everybody has plenty to drink.
Yeah.
So it was pretty inefficient, but I found a love for brewing beer. Um, to be honest, I thought if I ever opened up something for myself, I would have opened up a craft distillery. And then as time went on, the craft brewery bubble kind of came about.
Right.
Everybody was opening one left and right, and then it started to burst. And folks around us we saw starting to drop off. And I told the wife, I was like, maybe that's not a good venture to try.
Mhm.
So let's just save our cards for something else. But over that period of time, from 17 till now, I was interested in brewing beer. I got into wine. I got into mead really heavy. If I do anything at home now, I'm doing a mead at home.
Sweet.
Got into champagne. I got into
Oh,
sake.
wow.
If you could ferment it, I was trying to make it.
Right.
But for lack of better terms, I kind of ran out of legal stuff to do. And I was pretty hesitant to try anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched a lot of videos on YouTube for a number of years, kind of just wanting to know the process and like what makes this different, distilling versus making beer or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So gained a lot of knowledge there, and then decided that I wanted to go ahead and jump into it. So I sent out a bunch of just cold emails to local distilleries. I'm down here next to Louisville, Kentucky, so there are tons of me. So I sent emails kind of left and right, and the only person to get back to me was the original owner of Distillery 64. I was looking just to trade labor for knowledge, is what I was looking to do at all these places, and he was he's like, I full-heartedly believe in paying somebody for their work and their effort. He said, why don't you just come in and I'll teach you everything that I'm doing and kind of show you the books and how it's working, and maybe you can make a decision whether it's worth it for you or not to jump into the same industry. So we did, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And he recommended that I take this class out in Colorado at Downslope Distilling. I believe they're in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay.
I could be wrong. It's either Boulder or Denver. Fuzzy memory there. I'll blame that on the booze. But my wife and I went out to Colorado. We took that class. Kind of the first portion focused on the distilling and all the science. And then the second portion focused more on the business side of things and all the things that you would have to do to kind of get through the red tape. So we decided this is something that we wanted to pursue. And I picked up 2 and at some point in time 3 other side jobs to do, like on the weekends or at nights and stuff, and just started saving money back as much as I could. And then about a year later, which happened to be the year anniversary of Distillery 64 being open, Terry decided that it wasn't something he wanted to do anymore. He got a promotion at his day job. His kids were of the age now to be involved with sports and things like that, school activities, and he just didn't have the time to do it. So he asked me if I was interested in taking it over. That happened to be on Black Friday, as a matter of fact. And I was already 3 sheets to the wind that day when he texted me. And so that played into his favor, and I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And the rest is kind of history from there.
Awesome. And what was the timeline on this? What year was that?
So we took over January 2023. January 17th.
Okay.
So
Wow.
I've been doing this,
So fairly recently.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I'm gonna talk to the audience. It's kind of weird when you're doing a podcast and you're talking to somebody, but there's also other people listening and watching as well. So you want to kind of engage them as well. It's like breaking that fourth wall, so they say.
Sure.
But on this oakened rum, I like the way you said that, because I had a distillery sent me a package. It was a Canadian distillery. They sent me a package and it had an oakened poutine in it. And I was like, that's such a cool word to say, oakened, not just oak aged or something like that. So it's kind of cool. This is really, I don't dip into rums a whole lot. I've had some in the past. A couple people sent me samples of some cool rums and stuff, but I'm not, rum aficionado by any means. But it's super light on the nose, but you get a lot of the the wood influence, and it's not overpowering. It's really cohesive. It's sweet in its profile and the vanillins and stuff like that. And then on the taste, it follows through with that, and it's really easy to drink. And I can see how it would go great in an old fashioned, because it has just enough sweetness to where you could almost put less simple syrup or something, because it
Yeah.
just has enough inherent sweetness to it. It's a really excellent product, and thank you so much for sending this over. Let's talk a little bit about, especially on this product, is what type of rum? Is it blackstrap molasses or sugarcane or sugar?
Sure. Yeah, it's sugarcane is what we're doing.
Okay, cool.
TTB standards, it would classify as a rum, but like if you're thinking moonshine wise, I mean, this is what they were doing in the woods in Appalachian, and still are doing in the woods out there, right? You know, grabbing domino cane sugar, mixing it up, letting it ferment, and then, you know, making white dog out of it. So
Wow.
when Terry originally had the place, Moonshiners, that the TV show was kind of a really big thing, and he didn't so much want to be kind of pigeonholed in that that audience. So he wanted to make sure that he was kind of doing what he could to take a step away from that. So that's, you know, instead of calling this moonshine, our silver rum is silver rum instead. I mean, technically that's what it classifies as, since it's a sugarcane based product. And then, we took that and we started aging it on oak chips. And then that's what you're drinking there, is that oaked rum.
That's awesome. And are you and if you can't get into this for, you know, trade secrets or anything, I understand. Are you, I'm gonna use a $10 word. Are you capitalizing the sugar at all? Like, you know, boiling it off, or is it just heat it up with warm water and let it go?
We're real traditional, man. And that's personally something that I want to keep it to, is something real traditional, very basic. I mean, those roots were laid out for us a long time ago, and I think it's really important.
Yes, sir.
So I mean, yeah, that's what we're doing, is we're getting the water hot enough to melt the sugar, and then we're cooling it down, and we're adding our yeast nutrients and adding our yeast and letting it do its thing. But part of what we wanted to do with Distillery 64 was kind of pay it forward a little bit. Terry was so generous with his knowledge and his time that we want to continue doing the same thing. So we offer distilling classes as well. So everything that I've learned across all of my experience, I have people come in, you know, they pay for a seat, and we spend about 5 or 6 hours. Usually we mash in the same day. They get a bunch of take-home material as well, but I take somebody who has never had any experience distilling, or maybe just interested in it, and I pump them full of all the knowledge that I have and all of my my failures and my successes you know, along the way.
Absolutely.
We want to avoid. So yeah, it's like just distilling in general. I feel like from a moonshine standpoint, like there's not a whole lot of interest in it. There's a commercial interest, you know, from the consumer, but there is not the interest from people who want to do it. You know, and the people who have that knowledge are unfortunately getting of that age where they're starting to disappear. So that's one of the things that we wanted to do, was pass along that information to anybody who's willing to basically sit down and let me yell at them for a few hours.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I as well wanted to do with starting this podcast and doing all these things, is I have so much, I don't want to say I have so much knowledge, because there's people that are way smarter than me. But like, you know, I have a knowledge base on whiskey and understanding of it. And like, my wife is just like, hey, you know, I don't care. Why are you telling me? Go tell somebody else, you know? So that's kind of where my thing started. And so like, yeah, and then once you dive into it, like, you know, I'm sure you're the same as I am. You dive head first, and next thing you know, I got nothing but books behind me right here, you know, of distilling books, and, you know, from different areas of the world and different parts, everything from just Tennessee to Kentucky, how they were doing it back in the day, the old moonshiners, you know. There could be alchemist, some Black Forest stuff back there as well. Who knows? But so to get to that point, I know that Alan Bishop has you've been on his show as well and
Yeah.
talked to him a little bit, and he's a good buddy of mine, and he's a madman when it comes to distilling and the knowledge as well, and I feel like you go down that same path of just trying to get all the stuff out of your head and give it to somebody else so that they can understand it and get there a little easier. Because I started out, when going through all this, I was like, yeah, I could probably home brew too. I could run a home brew. I could do that. Well, I started, and then you start with like a clone, right? Because you're like, I'm going to try and make this beer. And then that one was okay. But then you're like, I just had to spend $1,000 to get like a fermenter. And then they want you to close transfer it, and you got to have a cooler to put it in and all. And I'm like, good Lord, this is going to turn into like a full-time thing. Like, I don't know if I want to. And then I made like 2 or 3 other ones. I made a stout and other things, and they just weren't great. So I was like, I'm done. so, so I like the other part of it when you distill it and then I can drink it. So that makes it a little bit better for me. Not that I don't like a beer every once in a while, but yeah, this run it through a still and we can talk. But so when you when you decided to start and take over the reins, was there already a portfolio at the distillery? Did they already have things lined up that they were doing, like gin and vodka and the rum, or did you kind of add to that?
Excuse me. Yeah. So they did have 5 base spirits. So they had the silver rum, they have the oak rum, they had the original gin, they had the vodka, and they had the smoke and rye. So everything after that has come from me. So the first one that I did was the Solskin gin, which is a citrus forward gin that's got a little more octane to it. So that's 90 proof. We do a lot of festivals throughout the year from February to November. So, and that gin is one of our best sellers. It has turned a lot of gin haters into gin lovers, which is great to me. Like, honestly, I used to
absolutely
hate gin. Everybody's got a gin story. I used to drink the stuff that came from the store that was just labeled with the word gin on it, like white label black letters.
Gin.
Exactly. Like, tossed my fair share of gin up. But it was actually my wife who got me into drinking gin a lot more. She was like, oh, you're just drinking the wrong gin.
Yeah.
And she really opened my mind to the whole portfolio that is gin. There's so many different gins out there. And then I started really playing around with my own recipes and stuff, and making my own gins. And like, if I can drink that gin, anybody can drink that gin.
Absolutely.
So this one, this Solskin gin, just pulling from my memory here to see what all's in it. Of course, it has juniper berries. It's got coriander. It's got angelica root. It's got cubeb berries in it, which is kind of like a minty peppercorn. It has, we hand zest 8 pounds of lemons and 8 pounds of oranges.
I'm sorry.
And then it's also got red rose petals in it as well. So you get the red rose petals through the nose at the end. But the first thing you're going to get hit with is that lemon up front. You're going to find a little bit of that orange. Then you'll find that kind of earthy, minty peppercorn.
Yep.
And then it'll finish with that rose.
Wow. And I am even less versed in gin. I love a good gin and tonic or something, especially during the summer, when it's just a good gin and tonic is great. So how do you normally prepare, like when you're pouring somebody some gin? Do you do it neat, or do you do it in a cocktail, or how do you normally serve it to people?
So if they haven't tried our gin before, I like just to give them like a short pour. just
Okay.
enough to wet the tongue a little bit to let them know what they're
Hmm.
getting into. With our speakeasy, we've got a pretty big portfolio of cocktails that are in there, and the majority of them are
Hmm.
gin based. Some of them are there to accentuate the flavors of the gin and make it the star of the show, and some are to kind of dial it back a little bit.
Right.
So I kind of want to gauge how they're feeling. Like if they like it, but they're not sold on it, but they still want a gin cocktail, I might suggest a cocktail for them that's a little bit more sweeter, that hides that gin just a little bit, but allows that
Right.
citrus to come through.
Right.
And then, of course, if they love it, then I'll go with something that's a little more spirit heavy, like a gin and tonic.
Right. Right.
But this
I
one in particular, really fantastic in a gin and tonic.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that because just on the I'm still getting the finish on it, and it's really nice. It's really cohesive, and it doesn't like, you don't get that real hard ethanol ding at all.
Yeah,
You don't get any of that. What you get is just like it's a citrusy. You get the juniper a little bit, but it's not like pine tar juniper. It's not like overly sappy. It's there. It's present, but then it's really clean on the finish, and it actually wants you to go back for more. Like it leaves your palate saying, hey, let's go back and try that again because I want to taste something else in it, which is that's denotes a good spirit when you're wanting to have a little bit more. So okay, so you said that your wife is part of the business as well.
yeah.
What is her role in the business?
She helps me with everything. She has come a long way in being able to distill herself as well.
Mm,
So when I'm not able to man the still or get things done, she
mm-hmm.
can step in, and she's well versed enough with the still to run that and make all the liquors that we produce.
Okay.
She has an exceptional palate for cocktails. So
Mm-hmm.
our speakeasy, with it being the nature that it is, it's a speakeasy, so it's kind of 1920s, 30s themed or whatever. I always wanted to have a place that, like, you almost have a book. Like, you've got to go through the book to figure out what you want and what speaks to you. And it was, I think it was 2 summers ago now. Um, we were like, we need to step up our cocktail game a little bit. Like, we have some great ones, but we had
Mm-hmm.
a one page menu, and I really wanted to step that up. And she came out of the gate swinging with a bunch of ideas. And one of the ideas that she had was actually partnering with our local spice and tea exchange that's here. So now
Okay.
we take some of their signature teas and we steep them in our spirits, and we'll use that as a base of the cocktail.
Mm-hmm.
So now our portfolio jumped from having, like, maybe 18 or 19 solid cocktails to now we're roughly around the 80
Oh, good
85
Lord.
cocktail mark.
That's awesome. That's
um,
awesome.
and I've got to give her full credit on that. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. Just coming up with that many cocktails, but you have to think it's really just a spirit source, some sort of bittering agent, some sort of sweetening agent, and then a inherent flavor throughout. So you could make a riff on a cocktail just using a different spirit fairly easy. So yeah, but using the teas and using and that's what's really cool about what you guys are doing is you're taking something from a local place and putting it into your stuff and just kind of making it kind of that general areas. Hey, this is what we do, and pronouncing them and pronouncing your spirit at the same time. So
yeah.
it's really kind of cool that you guys are knocking that out. So that's yeah. And so how many people are on the team over there?
So there's my wife and I, and we have 3 bartenders.
Okay. So
So
you guys are the main ones making all the spirits.
yep, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And if you don't mind me asking, what type of still site are we working on? Still setup.
So our whole place, including the tasting room, is 700 square feet.
Oh
So
gosh.
we are we.
We.
So our still is a 60-gallon still, 60,
Oh
65-gallon still.
wow.
Um, we've got, it's a hybrid still, so it's got 6 plates in it,
Hmm.
deflegmator at the top, and then of course the condenser. we run a double condenser on it as well. Um, so yeah, we're running about 50 to 55 gallon batches of mash or wash at a time, and then that produces us about 2.5 gallons of high proof
Hmm.
in about 8 hours or so. So very small setup, um, and yeah, it's to keep up with all the new spirits that we've been coming out with. It's kind of been proving a challenge a little bit.
Okay.
Um, because our still and our still we don't have like a chiller inside of it, and we can
Okay.
only dump our waste at a certain temperature into the city sewers.
Right.
So I can only distill every other day.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
which makes it a little rough, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so we've been knocking around the idea of putting in a second still, so one can be running while the other one's cooling down. But we are tight on space for sure, which has been a little bit of a challenge. But that means you just got to get creative and figure things out, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So could you, and I'm just spitballing here, could you transfer it into a tote, and let it cool down and do that?
So
If it wouldn't melt the tote, obviously.
yeah, so we've talked about transferring it into like a fermenter that's not being used,
Hmm.
but
Right.
all the pumps that we have are only rated to like 90 degrees or so. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
might as well just wait. So that's
Yeah.
what we've been
Exactly.
doing.
Exactly. And I'm sure there's plenty of other stuff to be doing when you're not distilling. So
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so as I mentioned with the other new spirits that we got going on. So since I came on, we released that Soul Skin Gin, and we released the Driftwood Gin, and then
Okay.
we have three other rums that we plan to release this year as well, that
Wow.
are in vapor infused. So when we run our gins, we use a vapor basket at the top.
Hmm.
So about 95% of our botanicals go into the pot. The remainder go into the vapor basket as much as it can fit. Um, I was doing some experiments one day and decided to take a batch of our gin base, and instead of putting the botanicals in the pot, take a bunch of different stuff and put it in the gin basket just by
Okay.
itself,
Okay.
and switching it out every liter that came off of the still. So we did a bunch of crazy stuff.
I'm
We did
sure.
like pineapples and strawberries and cucumbers and basil and ginger and all these different vegetables, herbs, and fruits. And the three best that came off happened to be cucumber, um, ginger, and basil. So
Really.
we've got a basil infused rum, and the ginger infused rum, and the whatever the other one I mentioned was. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
You
one.
lost me too. So I poured a small sample of that of the driftwood.
Yeah.
Kind of explain that one to me. Since we're in a gin mood, I thought I'd pour a little bit of that, and it looks oak aged or
Yes.
macerated or whatever. So tell us a little bit about this.
So this is actually our original gin, that we have put on oak.
Oh,
So
okay.
again, lightly toasted oak chips, and we steep it like a tea for a period of time.
Hmm.
And it's pretty incredible how big of a change that it really made to the spirit. So in
Yeah.
this gin, of course you're going to find juniper, coriander. There's angelica root. There's also orris root in there as well, which is
Okay.
from the
Yeah.
bulb of an iris. And then there's orange peel, dried orange peel.
Mm.
And in the original gin, just as it is, it's a good light, very approachable gin. It's not
Hmm.
overly piney by any means.
Right.
Very, very good for someone who's not used to gin, doesn't like gin, but wants to give it a try. This one, after it's been aged, it really brings that orange peel out, like way to the
It does.
front.
Hmm.
And it's just really, really pleasant.
It is.
Again, on just by itself neat, or in a gin and tonic.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So we've had folks at our speakeasy requesting to make old fashions with this gin.
Okay.
And it's actually become pretty popular. So we
Hmm.
went ahead and put it on the menu.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So I will also say at the very end of the sip on the driftwood, I get a little bit of the oak influence, like the vanillins
yeah.
and maybe even a little bit of caramel drizzle, which is really nice with like the botanical load. It kind of gives it like a desserty feel almost. It's really interesting and really kind of cool. I've had a couple of aged oak aged gins in the past, and this one stands out because it really, the profile is it's similar to the other one. Obviously that one has a little bit more citrus to it, but
Mhm.
this one, the oak presence and then that vanillins and stuff like that, it kind of reminds me of like I don't know if you've ever had that cake with like orange that has like orange zest on top of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's not sweet in any by any means, but it's kind of like that. So I could see how it would play very well in an old fashioned, because a lot of times I don't know about y'all, but I like to put orange bitters in my old fashions,
Yep.
and it
Same.
kind of gives that same kind of feel, which is really cool. Yeah, no, that's really interesting and unique, and I will tell you, not that I'm a master of all things spirits, but like I feel like your distillation cuts and all of that are right on point because
Thank you.
I don't see I'm going to say it like this and don't take it the wrong way. I don't see any faults in it is what I'm.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. Making cuts is an art form for sure.
Hmm.
It took me a long time to figure that out on my own stuff. But once you get it, you're kind of like, oh, it clicks. It's like, of course,
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
would do. But
and
yeah, thank
and
you.
and with gin it is a little different, and you can attest to this a little more, because like when you're doing the distillation on gin, like different things come out at different times, so it's going to
Yes.
be very juniper heavy in one point, and then it'll have nothing but angelica root or nothing but the orange, will just be dominating. How do you kind of combat that? Do you just let it roll and mix it all together, or how do you combat that?
So when we're doing something new, like for example, the citrus gin,
Hmm.
when we did that, so what we'll do is we will pull it off 1 liter at a time
Hmm.
off of the still and number that container. And so at the end of it, we have about 40 different containers, 40 liters or so, sitting on a table. And then we go through with a dropper and we take about 2 milliliters of the high proof and 2 milliliters of the water. And we start kind of at the middle. We work our way down to the tails. And then we go back to the middle and work our way back up to the heads. And then we're making notes along the way. You know,
Hmm.
where does this come in? Where does that come in? Nope, this tastes like wet dog. We definitely don't want
Mm.
any of that.
Yep.
Um, but another thing that may or may not be different, I'm not quite sure, but the way that we do things with our gin is our gin, we put our base fermented wash into the pot,
Hmm.
and we already know where our heads are at. So we already know where that cut's going to be. No sense in wasting the botanicals. So we
Mm.
run that, we pull off our heads, and we actually save our heads, and we put that back, and we'll make vodka out of it later.
Mm. Okay.
So once we get through all of our heads, then we put all of our botanicals in the pot and load the vapor basket, and we run the
Hmm.
gin and start collecting our hearts.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that's super cool because I mean, again, heads are heads. They got to come off. So
yep.
why have it come off and potentially strip the flavor from your botanicals? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a chemical biologist or whatever, but like I would see how high proof ethanol going over your juniper is going to strip. I mean, if it'll strip concrete, it'll strip juniper berries.
Right.
So that's kind of that's pretty smart. And I've even heard from people like Alan Bishop and Jesse from Stillet, both of those guys saying, if you're doing a distillation run, and especially on a column still, take your heads and stuff off before you even turn the not the condenser,
The flag bearer
plates. Yeah, the plates on. That way you're not even trying to adjust that, and because it's going to go up to 95% anyway. So like you're going to have way more spirit to go through than. And I know on large scale when they're doing 10,000 gallons or whatever they do, they just know at 200 gallons we got to dump it. But yeah, with smaller scale, it's a little more fine tuned, but it's also a little more artistic, I would say, right? Like you have to actually be there manning it the whole time, because something could go wrong, or you could have a low yield this time, and something goes awry, and it's really cool that you guys keep the excess as well, and read us, because there's always good product still in there. It just happened to not come through on that time. So yeah, that's super cool.
We used to keep the heads and tails from everything that we did, with exception of gin. We wouldn't keep the tails from gin because it had the botanicals in it, right? Right. But like even on our ryes, we used to keep the heads and the tails, but we stopped keeping the heads and tails from our rye, so that way our vodka. So we would take all the heads and tails and turn that into vodka, right? So that would keep our vodka much more consistent. And since we've done that, I know I'm biased, but our vodka is amazing. And we thought so much of it that we entered it into a few competitions, and it won gold in the Indiana State Fair, which for a vodka I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, vodka in its essence is odorless, tasteless, all the things. But I have noticed with a lot of vodkas, which I haven't had a whole lot of them as well, but that there is some flavors there. You can get something from it. It's not just neutral grain spirit. It's there's something there. And so that's pretty cool that you guys are doing that. So you said something about the rye, and this being a whiskey podcast, let's go. You sent over 2 different samples of rye. You did one smoking rye and one coffee and rye. So which one you want to get into there?
So let's start with the smoking rye, because that coffee might blow your palate out a little bit.
I mean, I should have opened these and had them ready, but I didn't want to mix match them together, because then I'd be like, oh, there's the rye, and the next thing you know, it's the gin or something. Knowing me. I can't thank you enough for sending over these samples. You didn't need to send that many, and I appreciate it, because they will get used. And I might send a little sample to one of the loyal listeners as well, so they can have a little bit as well. So.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you again. No
problem. So let's want to give you a kind of a menu.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, because, me being the whiskey guy, right? Everybody's like, oh, he just wants bourbon, and I'm like, I mean, I like that, but I mean, I like to taste the entire portfolio, because it kind of shows the brand. It shows what you guys are doing, especially with making your own stuff. Now, if it's a non-distilling producer, give me what you got. Let's talk. But it's a little bit different with this. So before we got on here, you had told me that today is your birthday. So I wanted to congratulate you and say happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you.
And you're doing well. Just to let you know, you're doing well. So
thank you.
Now did you say 35?
Yeah.
The big 35. Man, you are a young buck. You are a young buck.
That's what I keep hearing. I don't feel that way, but
I believe me. I'm only about 10 years older than you, and I'm like I'm dying over here. I'm literally dying. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the smoking rye. Why is it smoking?
Good question. I bet you get it on the nose there a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
So this rye is technically a moonshine. By the TTB standards, it's a distilled specialty spirit or whatever.
Right.
But this is mostly sugar cane, with 17% rye, malted rye.
Okay.
So we distill that, and then we take oak chips, and I hit them with a propane torch until they're really dark chocolate to black. And then we sift out the charcoal dust out of that,
right,
as much as we can, and then steep those like we would oak chips any other way. But that gives you the main note that you're hitting on there, which is that kind of campfire, smoky,
Yeah, that's
very
exactly what I
camping,
was. Yep.
nostalgic. Yeah. But that also gets you these kind of deep vanillas from
Mm.
the wood.
Yep.
It's kind of like a barrel candy almost.
Hmm.
Naturally kind of sweetens it up, and that charcoal really smooths it out as well, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. So I was not expecting that. And then I smelled it and I was like, okay, smoked means it's smoked, but it has the finish of like uh not so much barbecuey, because it's not like smoked meat or anything. It's not like peaty or anything like that, but it is like let's say you put out a campfire and it's still smoldering a little bit. That's kind
Yeah.
of what you get. Or even when you're cooking on briquettes, like charcoal briquettes, and you get it super hot and then it finally cools down a little bit, and you put your steak or your hamburgers on there and you get that Maillard reaction, that little fat drip on there, and it's similar to that as well, which is really cool. And the fact that you're only using 17% rye, it does have a nice rye profile on it. Like I
Yeah.
would have thought it would be 50% or whatever. Um,
Yeah, it's got plenty of that rye bite, the kind of that black pepper that you get from
mhm,
rye,
mhm.
for sure.
Wow. Yeah, man. Then going back to it again, it's like I get those deep vanillins to where it's almost it gets into creme brulee territory, like
Yeah.
burnt sugar type, but not like off-putting, not like too much burnt marshmallow, where it's like just acrid tasting. It's not like that. It's really, and again, another thing that attests to you guys' distillation is it's super clean. There's
Thank
nothing
you.
that's gonna take you away, because sometimes, and I've heard this from multiple people, when you are distilling just sugarcane, you'll get what they call that sugar bowl effect, where it's kind of tastes like you're smelling a sugar bowl,
Yeah.
at the coffee shop or whatever. I don't get any of that, and so that is really a testament to you guys's uh, fermentations and stuff like that. Evidently you're doing really clean fermentations, and using good yeast. That's not, you're not throwing baker's yeast in there and hoping that it works good. Which, hey, nothing wrong with baker's yeast, right? It's the people use it all the time. It's the same type of yeast, it's just not hybridized, I guess. But
That's right. Yeah.
people have been, the moonshiners used that for hundreds of years, so I can't knock it too much. But yeah, no, it's just super clean, super fresh, and then that little bit of smoke on the end. That's right up my alley, because I do enjoy a peated Scotch every once in a while. So
Same. Yeah.
yeah, it's right up my alley. So that's really cool. So let's talk a little bit about. Okay, so you have all of these products. How is distribution? Do you have any distribution? Is it distillery only, or do you partner with local people, or is it just we're just making enough to make cocktails at the speakeasy?
So really, distribution's basically non-existent.
Mm,
So I still have the day job. The wife still has her day job. Um, we just don't have the time to go out there and try to push it and make those relationships that you need to. 'Cause in,
right.
in Indiana, with an artisan distiller permit, we don't have to go through the three-party line if we
Mm,
don't want
okay.
to, up to a certain amount.
Right.
Um, but with that being said, I would love that to happen. But we do have our spirits in a few like local restaurants around
Hmm.
here.
Okay.
Um, there's a restaurant kind of actually around the corner from us. They were called the Exchange. They featured some of our stuff. There's a brewery up the road from us, Our Lady of Perpetual Hops, that has our gin, our Soulskin gin. Um, there is mainly a wine focused restaurant, but they carried some of our gin there as well.
Okay.
I know I'm forgetting somebody somewhere, but
Mm,
yeah, we're not on like even local liquor store shelves. Again, that's on me because I
right.
just haven't been able to get out there and make those relationships. But the majority of the liquor store shelves around us are owned by a single family that is in a completely different state.
Hmm.
So it's really hard to get in touch with them and make those relationships
Right.
anyhow. But it's something that we definitely would like to pursue. Um,
Right.
we did have some interest. I sent that Solskin gin into an
Hmm.
international competition,
Okay.
and it took a bronze in the gin category,
Wow.
but it got recognized by a big brand name in Canada.
Mm.
Um, and they were really interested in what we were doing. And
Mm.
craft distilling up there from the American states has become a big thing. People like it a lot. So they were interested. And long story short, the tariffs came about, and they started pulling American liquor off the Canada
Mm.
store shelves. So
Yeah.
that's been put
Yeah.
on
That happened.
pause. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That not great. Not great,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But at the
But
same time, like, yeah, I get it. I get it. Wow.
we do these festivals
Okay.
from February to about mid-November or so, and we're allowed to sell packaged product there. So
Oh, okay.
at the festivals, we do free samples and whatnot. Usually,
Hmm.
we're there with majority of craft brewers. Sometimes there's another distillery or two, but we do pretty well at those craft events, and we're always seemingly like 200 miles away from where we're actually located. Everybody wants to know where they can buy more. It's just
Right.
unfortunately we're not on any liquor store shelves, not even the one around the corner from us. So at the moment, if you need it, you got to find me in a parking lot on the weekend with a bunch of other people, or you got to come to my place.
Right. Right. Well, and that's, I mean, not to say anything, but you guys are young enough, both physically and company wise, that you can do the hard yards right now. And and that's why I'm so thankful for you coming on here, because not that I have the hugest following, I'm not doing Joe Rogan numbers and stuff like that, but we're doing okay. And so, like, this just gives you one more step towards doing what you want to do, and think about quitting a day job and making this a thing, so
That would be
because
great.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and that's everybody's dream, like me being the whiskey guy, I'm always like, man, I should just open a distillery and do this thing. And then I talk to people and they're like, yeah, don't do it. don't
Yeah,
don't do it. Promise.
if you
Promise
want,
you're gonna go into debt. You will go
yeah,
into debt.
if you want to make a small fortune distilling, start out with a larger fortune. Like that's what you need to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, you are correct. So wow. Yeah, that one hit me. Oh man, I was gonna. Okay, so you have all these products. Are you working on, or is there something in the books for, say, a brandy, say, a bourbon type, or even a single malt, or something like that? Have you been kind of toying around with things like that? I know those take time, and
Sure.
they need oak barrels, really oak barrels, because doing oak chips and stuff, that it'll work for a little bit, but then it'll just make it over tannic after a while.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to be drinking a piece of sawdust, that's for sure.
No,
But
no.
brandy is something that I would like to get into, just try, even if it's just like a limited small batch or something. For
Mhm.
Indiana, that's a real traditional spirit here, an apple brandy. So that's something I
Yes,
would like to get
absolutely.
into. But bourbon, with us being right on the river, we're across the river from Louisville, Kentucky. Uh,
Mhm.
we're in the bourbon capital of the world. Um, Everybody who comes into our tasting room is expecting to see a bourbon. And we were kind of always on the side of like, why try to fight all these big guys who are around us? Like,
Absolutely.
there's no need to try it. So we put it off for a while. But funny that you ask it. We actually mashed in our first bourbon mash this week.
Awesome.
So it is fermenting. It is all corn.
Okay.
So no rye, no even malted barley. So it's all corn, and we're gonna give it a run. It'll probably be ready towards the end of next week. Gonna give that a run and see how it fares. If it fares well, we'll keep on with that recipe, put it in a barrel, and hope to God in 4 years it tastes great.
Well, I will contact you in 4 years and say, hey, you got some of that? Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, when it comes to whiskeys and bourbons and stuff like that, there's so many things that people are sticklers about it. And if you
Yes.
go against, like, there's purists out there. I'm not a purist. I don't care. That they're like, I don't drink finished bourbons because they're not actually bourbon, stuff like that. And I'm like, come on, guys, let's get over it. If it's good whiskey, it's good whiskey, right? So just drink it and shut up. But at the same time, I understand where they're going, but there's so much legality. Whereas what you guys are doing, you're just kind of like, hey, this is cool and fun and different, and
Yeah.
we did a thing and it's pretty good. You want to try it, So you're not really pigeonholed into that thing. Whereas a lot of other distilleries, they're like, man, we make two products. That's all we make, and sorry, Whereas you guys are a lot more diversified in everything that you do, which is good, but then it can also, yeah, you would love to have, 20, 30 barrels in the back, just sitting there aging because, that's kind of, that can be a moneymaker in the future, but right now it doesn't make you anything. Whereas you can go
Right.
sell some gin this weekend and make it tomorrow, you could sell it this
Exactly.
weekend. So yeah. And that'll do. So you're saying you're doing pretty good at all these festivals and, all the other things. So like when you make let's say a finishing run, you're doing a finish, you said two gallons, a little over a
About two and a
finished
half
product, or
gallons a
no?
finish, or I'm sorry,
Okay.
2.5 gallons of high
Okay.
proof. And then once we proof it
High
down,
proof.
just,
Okay.
yeah, once we proof it down to either
Okay.
80 or 90, depending on what spirit it is, we've got
Hmm.
roughly 4.5, 5 gallons.
Okay. Okay. And that's per distillation run. So I mean, if
Yep.
you're running, and I mean, it's being that you have a day job, obviously you can't run 24/7. So I'm guessing you're just doing weekends, nights, sometimes when you feel like it. But when you're doing an 8-hour run after working all day, that's a long day.
Yeah. So we're fortunate enough to have our setup to be fairly convenient for us with some technology. So the previous owner, he was also an electrical engineer, so that totally worked out in
Okay.
our favor.
Love that.
So he wrote a piece of software that connects everything in our distillery, and I can remote into it from my phone. So I
Okay.
know that still takes 2 hours to heat up. I don't have to start it right at 5 o'clock when I'm off. I can start that at three
Got it.
o'clock. So by the time that I get there, we're starting to produce, 4 shots for heads.
Hmm.
So that helps kind of balance some things out. But no,
Yep.
there are plenty of late weeknights and plenty of early weekday or weekends for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you still also cater to the people coming in to the bar, getting cocktails, because
Yes.
obviously you want to be present for that as well, and not in the back, slugging hoses and stuff like that around. Obviously, people want to see that. They want to see a working distillery doing its thing in the back, but at the same time, you have to be out there greeting customers as well. So,
Yep.
yeah, it is a battle. I could only imagine trying to and then so then you were talking about possible growing pains and stuff like that, getting another still, doing all that, but then you have all the things that go with that, like then you need a bigger space, or you would have to reconfigure everything you're doing, and it's like, when are you ready to make that decision, or do you just sit back and kind of just coast where this is right now, bank a little bit of extra money until you can find another place, which no, that's not anybody's answer, you know what I mean? It's whenever you guys feel it is, and it gets placed in front of you, because I mean, you kind of jumped into this gig to begin with, so just hoping and praying that something comes along to where you're like, hey, we have this warehouse and it just happened to have three-phase power to it, $300 a month, let's go, like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the unicorn I'm waiting on, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, at the moment, that's kind of what we're trying to do. Like starting your own business uh, is stressing, right? And
Hmm.
because there's a lot of risk involved, right? So um, I wanted to make sure that I didn't put my wife in any sort of situation, financially. So we wanted to do it without putting any collateral on the line. That's why I worked my
Absolutely.
ass off, working 2 and 3 jobs, trying to bank money, and
Hmm.
that got us the vast majority through the door. So we're trying to let the business itself grow organically as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that maybe down the line we won't inject more of our own money into it, just as things come along. Um, but we have had some folks approach us that were kind of similar to what you were saying. Of like, hey, we bought this warehouse down here. We're gonna divvy it up and make a bunch of different, vendor spaces.
Hmm.
Are you guys interested? Like, yeah, we're interested. We go take a look at it, and then we find out that it's half the space that we have currently for twice as much rent.
Oh,
But
of course. Yeah.
it's yeah, sure, it's got all the power that we need, but yeah, that's just not going to work for us. So yeah, still trying to figure it out a little
Yeah.
bit. I'm learning every day.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing. Like, as long as you guys are cool, and you're making the product you want to make, and you're doing what you want to do, nobody can tell you to go big or go home, or all of these things. You can still do that now. Now, when it becomes a burden more than a pleasure, then obviously that's the time to reevaluate everything. But as long as you guys are able to do what you got to do, you're not financially draining your bank account,
Yeah.
and to where you're like, oh crap, I got to go sell some gin on the side of the road again, just to make payroll or whatever. As long as you're able to keep everything going and produce good product, then what's the hurry? Obviously, everybody wants to be Jack Daniels, right? Everybody. That's their
Yeah.
when you become a distiller. But look at, and I'm not poo pooing the big guys, right? But look at them. Half of their stuff is automated. They go through, they lay off people with no care for their personal, their family and stuff like that. People that have worked with them for 30 years, they're just like, sorry, you don't work here no more. And you with it, at least with you, you're more like, hey, we're a family, so we're gonna go through all this together. So it's really is a testament to the hard work that you guys are trying to put together, and still live into that heritage that was brought upon before you stepped in, which is super cool and commendable as well.
Yeah, and like another thing that has been asked of me several other times by like other distillers in the area or folks that we're out at events at, is, why don't you just buy the juice? Buy it from
Mm,
MGP. And there are folks that do that. There are good friends of ours who have their own distilleries that do that, and
mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
They're doing quite well with it. I enjoy Bullet. Bullet's
Mm-hmm.
MGP. It's made here in Indiana. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a bottle almost gone on my bar right now, a Bullet. Um, but for me, as a distiller, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put a product on my shelf that
Yeah.
I didn't put my hands on, that I didn't put my hands on through the whole
Absolutely.
process. So when you're getting something from us, our product is number one in our mind. Like, we want to make sure that you have a quality product in your hands, and every bottle that you buy, either myself or my wife has been with it from when it was a mash to when the shrinky dink was put on the cork.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
our main focus.
Absolutely. And it shows through the product, because, and not to get too smushy or anything, but like, you can see the care that went into even just you guys sending over these samples. Yeah, I could see the care that you guys put into it. Just it just shows. And whereas some other people, like you're saying, they buy a commodity product and they slap a new label on it and send it out to market. And hey, evidently it works, because people are buying
Yeah.
MGP off the. But I would rather have stuff from you guys, or from Brian over at Hard Truth, or
Yeah.
or Alan over at Old Homestead, which he needs to come on here too. He said he was sending me some of that sunshine, but it ain't happened yet. Alan, calling you out, brother. No, hopefully by the time this airs, he'll be on. But okay, so I just opened the coffee. What is it called?
Yeah. Coffee and rye.
Coffee and rye. So this one's intriguing because I love coffee. and I love rye whiskey. So,
It'll be
that's
right up your alley.
absolutely. So tell us a
Uh,
little bit about this.
so this is actually our smoking rye that we took, and we were looking for a local coffee roaster because I thought, with this smoke and with this kind of rye black pepper, it would pair really well with like a black coffee.
Hmm.
And I tried some stuff just off the shelf at the grocery store, and it was okay. Um, it was almost there, but not quite. So we
Right.
actually found a local roaster in New Albany, Indiana, where we're at.
Hmm.
That it, kind of a cool plus is like they do a bunch of charity stuff. So like you a certain percentage of each bag that you buy goes to like helping homeless people or something like that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Um, so they're called Talk Coffee, and I reached out to them and said, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm just not quite hitting the mark yet that I'm looking for."
Hmm.
And they recommended a couple different coffees that they had, and we're able to talk to them pretty extensively. And they sent me some samples. So I took those samples and started doing my testings with them, and then we landed on the one that's in here. I believe it's called Light Post. But we don't grind the coffee by any means. It's just the whole
Okay.
beans. And again, we steep them like a tea in the spirit for a certain amount of time. And that turns out that rich, dark coffee color. And then you get that black coffee flavor that's coming
Oh,
through in there.
absolutely. Absolutely. It is very much different than the smoking rye, but you can still kind of get the backbone of it. On the nose, it's like, oh man, how do I even explain it? It's like almost tobacco-y, almost
Yeah.
like, oh man, it's like it has this maybe even a leather component to it. It's really rich and viscous, and um, then a little spicy as well from the rye. I'm guessing. And then on the taste, it's definitely coffee. You get the coffee up front, but it's very. I'm going to say it. It's very smooth the way that the coffee presents. And then it just kind of comes through, and at the very end, you get a little bit of that rye spice. And man, this thing. Sitting on the back porch, sipping on this, that'd be pretty nice.
Yep. Put a little bit of cream in that, and you got yourself like a coffee sipping cream.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
man.
when I make new recipes and I'm trying my stuff and I'm making notes, I like to make notes of what memories does this pull for me.
Mm,
And
absolutely.
this one in particular, the first memory that I jotted down was going to flea markets as a kid with my grandma and grandpa. Like you've got that kind of like smokiness from grandma and
Hmm.
grandpa chain smoking since the 40s.
Yep.
In a bad way, not like it's an over tobacco like secondhand
Right.
smoke gonna kill you way, but just this really nostalgic like experience that I had with it. So you get that, like I said, you get that smoke and you get that coffee from Grandpa's thermos that he was always
Hmm.
carrying around. Because
Hmm.
I'll be damned if I'm buying the flea market coffee. I make my own.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Hell no. Hell no.
but yeah, that one's been really popular
Yeah.
too. As soon as it came out, like
Yeah.
we for about 6 months, we had a hard time keeping it around. I was making it like it was
That's
going out of
awesome.
style. But yeah, even like when we do these festivals and events, it's a great place to try new products because you get feedback from a vast array of people. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times you get the folks who kind of got dragged along to the event, right? Like, so we'll have people come up. Mostly it's a craft brewery kind of thing, and they're a bunch of beer drinkers.
Hmm.
So you get people that come up and are like, I don't drink hard liquor. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Do you like coffee? I love coffee. Give this a try. And then, probably 5 out of 10 times, I guess half the time, they end up buying a bottle before they
Hmm.
leave that day.
Yep.
Hard liquor doesn't have to be terrible. That's like
No. No.
everybody who is a beer drinker, they kind of have this idea that it's too harsh, right? It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
too harsh. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be
No.
unbearable. It
It
can be
doesn't.
enjoyable.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, Man, and then on the long finish, I mean, I haven't had a sip since you've been talking. It leaves you with like a almost a dark chocolate cocoa.
Yeah. Yes.
Where it's just like lingering on your tongue. Again, making me want to go back for another sip. So I see that you are wearing a rabbit hole hat. So I wanted to ask you a question since this is a whiskey show. What is one of your go-to whiskeys? That you would pick up. It doesn't have to be allocated or whatever, just something that you pick up where you're like, this is my jam, I'm gonna get it no matter what.
Uh, like my always go to, because I'm a little bit of a cheapskate, but not too much of a cheapskate. Like I go for a middle of the road, right? Like, because
Hmm.
it's rare that a bottle lasts the weekend around here. But Bullet's
Hmm.
rye whiskey, I really like the Bullet rye. I like
Okay.
their standard orange label Bullet as well. Um,
Right.
Let me think. We doing these events. We talk with a lot of other places as well, and I try to
Right.
share the love a little bit and always come home with something different. So there's a distillery out of Anderson, Indiana. Um, my gosh, I am drawing a blank on their name at the moment. I'm sure I can look it up, but they do a butter beer moonshine, is what they call it.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of this butterscotch. It's very thick, but it's kind of this butterscotch desserty moonshine. It's Oakley
Wow.
Brothers.
Okay.
That's who it is.
Okay.
Um, Great group of guys, and so that's another thing that I drink, as well as their root beer. They have
Okay.
a root beer moonshine that I like a lot. Um, but we have a Michter's right down the road from us here. Michter's rye is probably my favorite rye.
Okay.
Um, my wife works downtown, just like 2 blocks from that place, and any special occasion, any excuse really to pick me up a bottle of rye,
Right.
she's down there doing that for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, no, all that's what's so cool about the whole community and the scene is everybody's doing something a little bit different. Everybody's trying to, sell their wares and their brands and stuff like that. And I think what you guys are doing is staying true to yourself, staying true to what you guys believe in and what you wanted it to be to begin with. Because there's so many people that just jump in and say, I want to do what they're doing. Well, yeah, but 8,000 other people are doing what they're doing, like
Yeah,
do something a little bit different. And I feel like you guys are really doing that, especially with this cane base. It reminds me of some moonshines that I might or might not have had in the past. You know what I mean? Like it reminds me of some of that because like a lot of times, you get Popcorn Sutton out there. He's not mixing his stuff because his was actually halfway decent. But some of the other guys, they were making apple pie moonshine and all of these
yeah,
things, but they were using local ingredients with what they had, local, all of these things, and that's kind of gives back to the whole. I hate to say this word because it's kind of clickbaity, but the whole terroir of the thing, where you're like you guys are saying, getting a local coffee roaster, getting local tea people, and just trying to make it a community effort. And you could get a small barrel from one of the wineries and put some of your stuff in that. Like there's all
yeah.
these things that could collab. And so I guess that would be my next question. And I'm going to let you go here in a minute. But if you could collab with anybody locally or not locally, who do you think you would want to kind of hit up with? Like it could either be another distillery or a brewery or like you said, the coffee roasters and stuff. You've already done a couple of things, but
That is a good question that I was not prepared for. So yeah, that's a good question. So we have talked to a local brewery, Our Lady of Perpetual Hops,
hmm.
about taking like a very heavy, high alcohol beer and
Hmm.
running it through our still and
Okay.
doing like they have a license where they can do liquor as well as beer.
Got it.
But being able to do a comparison, like here's the beer, now here's the liquor, made from the same mash
Right.
bill.
Same. Right.
So we were talking about a Russian Imperial Stout and seeing how that would turn out. So just because that's in the forefront of my mind, because it's something we've been recently talking about, that'd probably be a collab I would be super interested in. But I'm open to anybody who wants to try something. I'm all about experimenting and giving things a shot. We try as much as we can to be involved with the community in whatever way that we can be. We'll see if it gets off the ground here, but we are trying to put on a festival at our place this year, with craft breweries, some other craft distilleries, some local food trucks. But part of it, kind of quietly, is going to be benefiting a particular charity in our area. But we do a lot of work with our local tourism group and trying to work with other local small businesses however we can. So yeah, I'm open to pretty much whatever. I don't have like a dream collaboration by any means. I mean, I would love to do something with Jesse from Still It. If
we all would.
If that guy was not around, I would not be here. He is.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, I probably wouldn't either. So we can talk about that off camera. So,
sure.
Yeah, I know. Go on. Sorry.
No. All good. Just I learned so much from his channel that like I would still be trying to figure things out. Catching my butt coming and going if it wasn't for that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had mentioned something earlier in the very beginning about making mead. Yes. And I tried my hand multiple times with mead because I thought, it's not beer, so I could probably do that, right? Now, honey, as you well know, is very expensive, so you don't want to screw it up. But I made one recently, and the listeners are going to be so sick of me talking about this. I called it the old-fashioned mead, which I took it away from another channel. They made one similar. And so what I did is I took a mead, I made a basic mead, water, yeast, and honey. And then after it was done fermented, I added an entire bottle of Wild Turkey 101 to it. Okay. And then added those maraschino cherries, but the Luxardo ones, the supposed good ones, right? Poured a whole can of those in there, did my thing, let it secondary ferment because there's some sugar in those cherries as well. And that turned out to be one of the best meads I've ever made. Obviously, it was a hybridized, bastardized one. It came out to like 22.2% or something like that. It was crazy high ABV because of the Wild Turkey, but it was so good because it was a cocktail in the glass, right? So you had talked about mead. Have you ever tried distilling mead or doing anything like that with the mead?
I have. So I've tried distilling a couple.
Okay.
And just financially speaking, I could not put a product out there and charge the general consumer that much money.
Absolutely.
Consciously, like. So I did a honey and pomegranate mead that turned out just amazeballs. And I distilled it, and it was just fantastic. I had a name for it and everything. I was going to call it Valkyrie because it had this nice pink hue to it and stuff, and it was just really great.
Awesome.
But yeah, then I did the math on it, and it was like, no, there's no way. It's not feasible.
That's a $300 bottle right there. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I would have to charge so much money that nobody would buy it, for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, but it's so cool to try things and be like, okay, logistically this doesn't work. But if money was not an option, this would be an absolutely amazing product that we could put out there. And that's what's kind of cool. Actually, it's really cool with what you guys are doing and what a lot of craft artisan, as you said, distillers are doing is you're just trying stuff and like, hey, this works, this doesn't work. But unfortunately, when it doesn't work, that hits that affects the bottom line and stuff. But like, trying new things and different things, and a basil rum, and why not try that? It's amazing. Why not try it? You know what I mean? So like, just getting out of that comfort zone, out of that box of just making basic gin, basic this, basic, all of these basic things. Yes, basic is fine. We need it in day-to-day life, but getting outside that little box and just kind of creating your own thing and making it yours, that kind of is craft in itself, isn't it? Like, that's kind of what craft is all about, making it yours. And I applaud you for that. And that's really cool. But yeah, anything else before we get out of here? I've kept you long enough. I'm sorry that I ramble on like I do.
No worries, man. I'm having a good time.
Okay, cool.
Not much else from me. Just some shameless plugs, if you don't mind.
No, do it. Just plug away.
We are in New Albany, Indiana. Again, we're called Distillery 64. We are located at 800 East 8th Street in New Albany. We are a little bit hard to find in true speakeasy fashion. But you'll show up at the building and you're going to think you're there for a late night colonoscopy. But just follow the arrows. You'll find a typewriter with some instructions and a telephone. You follow those instructions and we'll get you inside. We're open Fridays and Saturdays 5 to 11.
Awesome.
And of course,
awesome. That is so cool.
Of course, we got the social media stuff as well. We post our password to the speakeasy every Friday for that weekend. We keep it updated Friday and Saturday. We're on Instagram and Facebook, both at Distillery 64.
Awesome. And I will have all of that stuff in the description down below. And yeah, no, it was so much fun talking to you and getting to learn a little bit more about not only you, but what you guys are doing over there. And guys, it really is a testament to the time that these people are putting into this product, because everything I've tried tonight, and there's still a couple of samples I haven't tried, which I'm going to. I promise, Brett, I'll try these and I'll give you my thoughts on it. But I'm sure they're going to be amazing, because everything I've tried so far has been top notch. And I can't thank you enough for just trying to put the best product out there that you can, and just kicking ass. And I appreciate you. And again, happy birthday. I know you could probably be doing other cooler things than hanging out with me, so I appreciate that so much.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. Thanks for reaching out, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah, no problem. And that's the thing, like, just get out there, do your thing, and keep on keeping on, because people are listening, and hopefully they're buying product, and it seems like they are. And yeah, if you guys are ever in New Albany, go check Distillery 64 out, and go. You got to find that passcode though, so you might want to look on the socials. But y'all be good. Thank y'all very much for hanging out with us, and until next time, keep your spirits up. Peace out.